So the first stand-up is Property Committee. Mr. Barnett, it looks like you have everyone but Mr. Friedrich, who had said he wasn't going to be able to attend. If you want to start.
Okay, here we go. Now call the meeting of the Property Committee to order at 5:19 p.m. 2 items for action on property stand-up agenda today. Item number A, 1A, request approval of bills and transfers. This is a normal item that would have been approved had the committee met earlier this month. Need a motion for approval from the committee. Member Johnson, need a second. Member Thompson, also nice to see you joining us from the field out in your tractor there. Any questions or discussion on the item? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of approving item A, 1A, signify by saying aye and raising your hand, I guess. Okay, motion passes. Second item on the property agenda is item A, 1B, request approval of an emergency appropriation ordinance amending the McLean County fiscal year 2019 combined annual appropriation and budget ordinance for the general fund, facilities management, and parks and recreation on pages 9 through 10 in the stand-up packet, and would request a motion for approval from the committee. Member Smith, a second. Vice Chair Beard, thank you. This is with normal cleanup of the budget at year end. Any questions or discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of approving item A, 1B in the property stand-up packet, please raise your hands or say aye. Okay, motion passes. Property has no other items to come before them. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Next, we have Land Use and Development Committee. It looks like we have all members present. Mr. Erickson, if you want to go ahead and start your meeting.
Yes, thank you, Mike. The Land Use and Development Committee brings one item for action. Item B1A, request approval of bills and transfers. I have a letter here from our county auditor that states that she has reviewed the bills and that they comply with the McLean County Board ordinances and resolutions. I have bills in the amount of $540.09. Can I have a motion to approve? I got a motion by member Woolrab. I got a second by member Beard. Any discussion, any questions? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passed. We're adjourned. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome, sir. Sorry, next up is Finance Committee. Mr. Solomon, it looks like you have all members present.
Very good. Finance has one item today. Item C1A, request approval of a critical hire request. It's for a person in the state's attorney's office. I would entertain a motion to approve this. Motion by member Barnett, second by member Metzger. Any discussion or questions? If not, we're ready to vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries. That is all for finance. Thank you very much.
Chairman Gordon, it looks like you have all members present for your stand-up for justice if you want to start your meeting.
Thank you. I do have to apprise whoever is running the video that every tile on my screen except mine has frozen. So if you're going to raise your hand, you better do it with some voice along with it. I'd like to call the meeting of the Justice Committee to order. We have one item to consider, item D1A, approve payment of grant invoice, and actually in this case it's grant invoices in the stand-up packet, pages 15 through 29, and County Administrator Rodriguez emailed all members of the Justice Committee copies of the 2 invoices in question. I will entertain a motion. I will need to hear a motion.
I so move, George Wendt.
Moved by Member Vice Chairman Wentz, seconded by,
Seconded by Member Bloomfield.
thank you. Any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, if we are ready to vote, the chair will vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No opposed. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.
Chairman McIntyre, the executive committee stand up. It looks like you have all members present. You can start your meeting whenever you are ready, sir.
Thank you. We have 3 items for action today. Item E1A is request approval of emergency appropriation ordinance amending the McLean County fiscal year 2019 combined annual appropriation and budget ordinance for the general fund for facilities management, parks and recreation. Is there a motion? Motion by member Barnett, second by member Solner. Comments or questions? If none, please signify by raising your right hand if you're in favor. I find anybody. Opposed? Motion's carried. Item E1B, request approval of an emergency appropriation ordinance amending McLean County fiscal year 2019 combined appropriation for departments under the Justice Committee's purview. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by member Gordon. Is there a second? Second by member Woolrap. Comments or questions? If none, then we will vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion is carried. E1C, request approval of a resolution of McLean County Board continuing the declaration of an emergency pursuant to section 11 of the Illinois Emergency Management Agency Act. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by member Metzger, second by member Schaefer. Comments or questions? If none, all in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion has carried. Concludes our meeting. Executive committee is adjourned.
Sorry, we have about 5 minutes before, 4 minutes before board. McLean County Board, April 21st, 2020. Chairman, you are good to go.
Good evening. Before we begin today's meeting, notice was published in the Pantograph, posted online and at the entrances to this building, indicating the intent of the McLean County Board to conduct a public hearing with regards to IDOT FY fiscal year 2021 applications for section 5311 and downstate operating assistance public transportation grants. I hereby declare the public hearing open. Are there any interested persons or agencies to be heard with respect to the proposal of the McLean County Highway Department for show bus for rural transportation for McLean, Livingston, Iroquois, Ford, DeWitt, and Macon counties? I ask again, are there any interested persons or agencies wishing to be heard on this matter? I ask a third time, are there any interested persons or agencies wishing to be heard on this matter? Ms. Rodriguez, has anyone sent any comments into the county electronically or otherwise regarding the subject on this hearing?
No, Chairman, they have not.
Thank you. This concludes the public hearing on the IDOT 2021 fiscal year 2021 applications for section 5311 and downstate operating assistance public transportation grants. Good evening, everyone. Again, this time I'd like to call the meeting to order. Would you please rise for an invocation by Member Holder.
Let us pray. Lord, you are testing our resolve, our patience, and our ability to remain calm and to bounce back from the great pandemic of our time. We hope that we are meeting your expectations. Please help us to make decisions that are wise and true and good and that are helping residents of this great county. Please bless our president, our governors, our mayors, this county board, and all local governments that are making hard decisions and will continue to make these. Please guide our workers in the medical field and law enforcement, and all those who are providing assistance to those in need. Lastly, lay your healing hands on all who are suffering. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Morlock, will you please call the roll?
Lori Woolrab. Yes. Josh
Here.
Barnett,
Present.
Jacob Beard,
Present.
Lindsay Bloomfield,
Present.
William Gaisley,
Present.
Aaron Chung,
Present.
Chuck Erickson,
Present.
William John Friedrich, absent. George Gordon,
Present.
Elizabeth Johnston,
Here.
Randall Martin, Catherine Metzger,
Present.
Carla Rubistelli,
Present.
Susan Schaefer,
Here.
Logan Smith.
Here.
James Solner,
Here.
Gerald Thompson,
Present.
Shana Wachinski,
Here.
George Wendt,
Present.
John McIntyre. You have 19.
Here. We have 19 members present, one absent. We do have a quorum. We'll move on to item number 5 on your agenda, appearance by members of the public and county employees. We have had 2 members who have submitted emails or speeches, and Ms. Morlock will read them at this time.
The first one submitted was by Olivia Butts, and I will read it into the record as it was submitted. My name is Olivia Butts, a member of Black Lives Matter Bloomington Normal. I am emailing you in advocacy of one of the most vulnerable groups to the COVID-19 pandemic, inmates of the McLean County Detention Facility. While we have seen the jail population reduced by 1/3 in the last month, I know that there is more that you, in conjunction with Sheriff Sandage, can do to protect the health, safety, and mental well-being of those still incarcerated. I will add that I do believe that there are more inmates that are being held on bail or nonviolent offenses that should be let out, which we have recently witnessed happening across the country in communities large and small. If decarceration is not an option, I am requesting discussion on and proposition for federal aid and teleconferencing opportunities by inmates being held in the MCDF. You, the elected members of the county board, have entered into an agreement with IC Solutions, a private and highly profitable telecommunications agency, to provide phone and video call services for the inmates, off of which you receive a commission. Prior to the shelter-in-place order, all inmates were allowed 3 30-minute in-house video visits each week, free of charge. With recent changes to the jail visitation policy, all visitation has been canceled in-house and must be conducted remotely. Black Lives Matter Bloomington Normal has been providing money to people with loved ones in the McLean County Jail for the past 5 days, and we've already posted money to 15 accounts and spent over $850. This alarmingly high sum tells you one thing: the cost to communicate with your loved one is not cheap. The base cost of $7.50 plus tax and fees for a 30-minute video visit and 20 cents per minute for a phone call quickly add up, but also come with maximum monthly limits. While our organization will help as many people as we can, this is not a sustainable solution. There are actions that you can take and should take. I am asking the following. Number 1, eliminate the costs of video conference/call inmates until in-person visits are restored. If you cannot do this, eliminate or subsidize the usage fee. Paren ranges from $3 to $6 every time you upload money to an account, close paren. And taxes, paren, which range from $4 to $15 per transaction. Number 2, eliminate maximum monthly limits to prepaid and debit telephone accounts. There will still be limits to collect calling per month, which protect consumers by preventing them from inadvertently incurring very high phone bills that they may not be able to pay. I should have said, quote, protect consumers, end quote, with pay. TKC Holdings per IC Solution website FAQ. Currently, users are limited to utilizing $275 per month, which directly equates to far less interaction with loved ones in the facility now that in-person visits are canceled. Additionally, the current financial crisis has made these visits even more impossible to afford. I have talked with people myself who have already hit their maximum limits for this month, less than 20 days in. And then number 3, increase deposit limits per transaction to help diminish fees. The maximum allowance is currently $50 per transaction, which ensures that additional fees can and will be charged multiple times per month. These predatory pricing schemes are inflicted at multiplying rates when using a third party such as Western Union to transfer funds. As mentioned by the staff, all inmates are on a 23-hour lockdown, which means that they get 1 hour of free time to make phone calls, shower, or have recreational time. If the county plans to enforce this isolation as a means to reduce the spread of COVID-19, you must step up to protect the mental well-being of these inmates. These video calls are so important to their ability to cope, not only as an isolated inmate, but as someone like us, many of us who have increased anxiety due to the pandemic. Numerous studies link the mental health of inmates with their physical health and ability to fight disease. I appreciate your time and consideration. This is an unprecedented situation and requires your creative and empathetic solutions to do the best that we can for all the people in McLean County. I look forward to a response and am available to talk to any board members. Please contact me at blacklivesmatterblono@gmail.com. Olivia Butts. Second one was submitted by a Zach Gett, and I hope I say that name right, Zaccgett, Zach Gett. I'll read it into the record. Thank you, esteemed county board members. Amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, all of human civilization has one goal to guarantee our species survival and a limiting of economic and social devastation, and that's to flatten the curve. I'm speaking to you as the elected leaders with fiduciary responsibility over county property, including the McLean County Jail. As of April 10th, the current inmate population is 164. According to the sheriff, he has 140 essential employees he needs to maintain the efficiency of the jail. In total, that is 304 at the jail who are unable to social distance and therefore unable to flatten the curve. Medical experts consider jail, prisons, and detention centers petri dishes for communicable diseases. Cook County Jail is currently ground zero for COVID-19. It's so bad in Illinois prisons that the governor released an executive order medically releasing 13,000 inmates, nearly a third of the entire Illinois IDOC population. Even former directors of immigration enforcement, the federal government, to temporarily release immigrants currently being detained. To be clear, the sheriff's comments regarding taxpayers' demands to temporarily depopulate the jail obfuscate the truth of their requests. Not a single person has asked the sheriff to rip up court orders or release murderers, rapists, pedophiles, etc. The demands have been to do everything possible to release individuals deemed not a safety threat, as the demands have been directed at members of the very same CJCC the sheriff touted. We should temporarily depopulate the jail during the pandemic. The sheriff says there are no cases of coronavirus in the jail, but how does he know? He's not testing them. He says people are having their temperatures read, but we know that most infected people are asymptomatic. How many of his staff have been tested? They all qualify to be tested at the FEMA site on Interstate Road. When, not if, COVID-19 strikes at the jail population, it will be ground zero for the pandemic in McLean County. All the medical bills of inmates, whether at the jail infirmary or the local hospital, will be on the McLean County taxpayers. If anyone dies, we could be subject to wrongful death suits. So if you don't have an issue with the current jail population, including the employees, start figuring out now what you're going to cut from the budget next year. If the jail population were temporarily decreased, would that decrease the number of essential workers the sheriff claims he needs? Wouldn't it be better if these employees, who we all say are essential and necessary for a functioning government, wouldn't it be better to have less of them shuffling in and out of the jail? Give these employees paid time off so they can spend the pandemic with their families. Because if there is an epidemic at the jail, it's not going to get out into the community through the inmates. It's going to spread to the area from the essential workers at the jail who are asymptomatic and who are going to the same restaurants and grocery stores that the rest of the community is going to. Warm regards, Zachary Kittrick.
Thank you, Mrs. Morlock, for reading those letters. We'll move on to item 6 on our agenda, the consent agenda. You have it before you. It's on pages 2, 3, 4, and 5. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by member Metzger, second by member Caseley. Any comments or questions? If none, all in favor of the consent agenda, please raise your hand. Motion is carried. Item D on page 3 is a transfer ordinance. Requires 2/3 vote. Is there anyone who wishes to vote as a dissenting vote? If not, we'll consider the consent agenda to pass unanimously. And I'd like for you now to turn to item G and go to page 83. So you go along with me and we can read along. This is a resolution that was offered expressing support for frontline workers of the COVID-19 pandemic. Whereas Illinois Department of Public Health, DPH data show that as of April 16th, 2020, there are nearly 25,730 confirmed cases of COVID-19 and 1,072 deaths from COVID-19 in Illinois and growing, whereas 27 Illinois counties are reporting community spread of COVID-19 as of April 16, 2020, whereas McLean County, Illinois Health Department data show that as April 16, 2020, there are nearly 82 confirmed cases of COVID-19 and 3 deaths from COVID-19 in McLean County and growing, whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has rapidly intensified the daily lives of frontline workers, whereas those at the front lines, including firefighters, emergency medical technicians, other healthcare workers, animal control personnel, law enforcement, other emergency management personnel, and corrections officers are facing unprecedented challenges to stay healthy and serve their communities. The McLean County Board issues a proclamation of support for frontline workers of the COVID-19 pandemic that, number one, honors and recognizes the contributions of all frontline workers and essential critical infrastructure personnel, and number two, reaffirms the commitment of the McLean County Emergency Management Agency and the Emergency Operations Center to continue to provide frontline workers the most effective personnel protective equipment and other necessary tools to safely carry out their jobs. Adopted this 21st day of April 2020. We know that, of course, that those numbers have changed since this was submitted to the packet. And I want to have you all unmute and join me. If you could all unmute briefly and give it a big hand for all the frontline workers that have helped us in this county. Next, we'll move on to the report of the standing committees. First, we have Executive Committee, Vice Chairman Solner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Executive Committee has 3 items to present today. First one is 7A1A, request approval of an emergency appropriation ordinance amending the McLean County fiscal year 2019 combined annual appropriation for departments under the purview of the Executive Committee. It's cleanup, and I so move.
Motion by Vice Chairman Solner, second by Member Woolrab. Comments or questions? Discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion has carried.
Second item is 7A1B, request approval of amendment to Chapter 20 of the McLean County Code, McLean County Board Rules. Comes from the Rules Subcommittee. There were several changes. Be sure and take a look at those if you haven't. And I make the motion. I so move.
Motion by Chairman Solner, second. Second by Member Gordon. Comments or questions? Any discussion? If none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Opposed? Motion has carried.
Next item is 7A1C, request approval of a resolution of the McLean County Board continuing the declaration of an emergency pursuant to Section 11 of the Illinois Emergency Management Agency Act, and I so move.
Motion by Chairman Solner. Is there a second? Second by Member Johnston. Comments or questions? If none, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion has carried.
That's all we have today as far as action items. Our general report can be found in the unimproved minutes on page 28 through 36. I'd be glad to answer any other questions.
Thank you, Chairman Solner. We'll go on to the report of the Justice Committee, Chairman Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Justice Committee brings 3 items for action to the board this afternoon. Item B1A, request approval of an emergency appropriation ordinance amending the McLean County fiscal year 2019 combined appropriation for departments under the Justice Committee's purview, pages 106 through 110 in our packet, and I'll move that.
Motion by Chairman Gordon. Is there a second? Second by Member Schaefer. Comments or questions? If none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion is carried.
Item B1B, request approval of an emergency appropriation ordinance amending the McLean County fiscal year 2019 combined annual appropriation and budget ordinance, General Fund 0001, Department 0029, pages 111 and 112 in our packet, and I'll move that.
Motion by Chairman Gordon. Is there a second? Second by Member Robustelli. Comments or questions? Discussion? If none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Opposed? Motion is carried.
Our last item is item B1C, request approval of a BJA CAT grant agreement with the National Center for State Courts, pages 113 through 123 in our packet, and I'll move that, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Chairman Gordon. Is there a second? Second by Member Kaisley. Comments or questions? Any discussion? If none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Our general report can be found in the unapproved minutes on pages 13 through 16, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to item C, report of the Finance Committee. Chairman Solomon.
I have a question for
All right.
Justice. Thank you. I just wanted to kind of check back on something that I've asked about a couple times, and I don't know if Camille might have this answer for me. Can we find out what the monthly total is that the county receives for those video conferencing fees and commissions? And how much it would be monthly to, if we were to, I don't know, waive or absorb those fees, how much that would be?
I will tell you that is, are you talking particularly about the jail? That is a contract.
Yes.
Money is paid to the contractor. I think you said the
Mhm.
county receives. I think.
Yeah, I thought that's what Julie had said with the email. That I was just trying to catch up on what that email said.
All I
So
can do
public comment, yeah,
is back to your committee to give you that number. That'll
okay,
be up to the sheriff to report that.
okay,
Thank you. Anybody else?
thank you.
Let's go on to the Finance Committee. Chairman Zoller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Finance has 6 items today. The first 2, with your permission, I'm going to combine C1A and B. Request approval of the 2019 purchase order budget ordinance and request approval of a 2020 purchase order budget ordinance. These are from the auditor's office, and I make that motion.
Is there an objection to combining A and B? If not, there's been a motion by Chairman Solner. Is there a second? Second by Member Barnett. Any comments or questions? If none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion's carried.
Next item is C1C, request approval of emergency appropriation ordinance, amending the McLean County fiscal year 2019 combined annual appropriation. This is just annual cleanup, and I make that motion.
Motion by Chairman Solner, second. Second by Member Woolrab. Comments or questions? If none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carried.
Next item is C1D, request approval of an ordinance by the McLean County Board Personnel Policies, amending the McLean County Code, specifically Chapter 108, Personnel Policies and Procedures, Article 5, Position Classification Plan and Pay Plan, Section 46. This deals with overtime payments, and I so move.
Motion by Chairman Solner. Is there a second? Second by Member Bloomfield. Comments or questions? If none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion is carried.
Next item is C1, where we at? C1E, request approval of a resolution postponing delinquent date interest for the first installment of 2019, payable 2020 property tax payments pursuant to to 35 Illinois Combined Statutes 200/21-40 C1B, and I so move.
Motion by Chairman Solner. Is there a second? Second by, Member Johnson. Comments or question? If none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion has carried.
Okay, the last item is C1F, request approval of amendments to McLean County Targeted Loan Program in response to COVID-19 impact. I make that motion.
Motion by Chairman Solner, second by Member Beard. Comments or questions? Member Woolrat.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'd like to offer an amendment concerning the program description that is on page 133. I would like to say that, have it amended to say that rather than both, and that's the paragraph that begins with both programs require a support letter. It's about in the middle of that page. And I'd like to amend it to say that both programs require a support letter, in striking the proof the business sought federal or state programs from that requirement. So it would end up being both programs require a support letter from a financial institution and a COVID impact statement. And I can explain my reasoning for offering this amendment now, or we can talk about it in a moment. What would you prefer?
On the floor first, there's an amendment offered by Member Woolrab. Is there a second? Second by Member Robicelli. Now, comments and questions. Go ahead, Member Woolrab.
Thank you. Here's my reason for offering this amendment. As we all know, the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, which would be the main program for very small business we are endeavoring to help. It ran out of money last week after being open for just a brief period of time. The Small Business Administration has a notice on its website, as this morning it did, that due to the lapse of funding, it is currently not accepting any PPP loan applications. And you'll see that same message on bank websites. Now this evening, there's some news story that it was going to be re-upped, but hasn't been finalized at this point. The federal government so that would come through the federal government. Stories on the internet abound about the bulk of funds that have gone to much larger businesses than we are addressing here, and possibly when more funding is added PPP, the new money will quickly disappear. Furthermore, I'm personally aware of very small businesses like those of our program, which have not yet received a bank response concerning the PPP and certainly haven't received a loan. In this case, we would be asking to provide something that they could not provide for us. So because of these circumstances, the requirement that a business should have applied for PPP or other federal or state program is an unnecessary hurdle, and one that might not even be possible for some businesses to meet. So I'm suggesting that eligibility for our program be independent of whether a business did or did not make an attempt to apply for a program, which in the case of PPP, it turns out they have so far had very little chance of getting anyway. It is far more important that we get these funds in the hands of our smallest businesses just as soon as possible, in hopes that some of them will actually survive. Thank you.
I think I understand that. Do other people have questions? Member Erickson? I understand your amendment. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would speak in favor of the amendment. I had spoken with Member Wolrab numerous times today. And in the past, when we had the Finance Committee, it did seem the thing to do that we should include the federal and state. But as we've learned that PPP ran out of money and a lot of people who applied for PPP didn't get it, it just seems to me that we shouldn't make that a requirement. I will add my belief that it is my hope that we exhaust these funds in their entirety. This is the emergency. I don't know what emergency we would want before we tried to exhaust those funds, but we need to spend them. I would add this to the comments made by Member Wolrab. I have an email here from the Illinois Small Business Emergency Loan Fund. It says, Chuck, due to incredibly high demand, we are currently processing applications submitted heretofore. Please reach out to us in 7 to 10 days to request application materials. We look forward to assisting you. The reason I point that out is even if you make the application, if you didn't get in on time, you may not get the funds, and then you may have to resubmit another application. So even the Illinois funds are backed up. Just not the state funds. I'm sorry, it's just not the federal funds. The state funds that are backed up as well. And so when Member Wolrab called me today and asked me to support it, I was more than happy to do so. I think it's the appropriate thing to do. And I think it would be a great boost to our small businessmen and women in this community to try to get money out to them where I think we can help them. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Member Erickson. Anyone else have comments about the amendment? Member Beard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I will also support this. I think as we heard the presentation from Mr. Hoban and the additional discussion at the executive committee meeting, the goal is for the funds to be able to be distributed quickly and also to be distributed to businesses that maybe are less connected or are smaller or don't necessarily have all of the ability to apply for everything all at once. The goal initially of putting that requirement in there, I think, was to avoid just a handful of businesses from pulling money from all of these funds. Now, as Ms. Wolrab mentioned, the Senate just today passed an additional $500 billion. So we are hopeful that within a week or so, additional funds will be available for the PPP. And as this fund is administered by the EDC, I think we also want to be hopeful that it is used up, but also spread around so that just a handful of businesses don't dip from every available resource, but rather those smaller, potentially less connected businesses do have access. So I think as long as this fund, which again, it's only $600,000, so there is a limit. As long as this fund is able to be used and out the door to the small businesses in McLean County, then it'll be a success. So I will support this amendment.
Thank you. Any other comments? Member Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to both agree with what has been said, but to particularly emphasize the need for speed, because some of these small businesses may not be around to even receive the funds if too much time is allowed to go by. The fewer hoops to jump through under these circumstances, the better, as I see it. And I support the amendment, and I'm very happy that Member Wolrab pursued this, and I'm glad to hear the comments that have been made. I support the amendment wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? The amendment by Member Wolrab is to strike the words and on page 133 in the middle sentence, and proof the business sought federal and state programs. Remember what Robustelli?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, I can't tell if you can see me, or I know I'm on the corner there, so maybe it's not as easy to see. I just want to thank Member Walrab for bringing this forward. I think when we started talking about this at Finance 20 days ago, we never would have imagined that the fund that was created would be exhausted as quickly as it was, and that there would have been so much demand for these funds. We find ourselves in a completely different place than we were then. So I will enthusiastically support the change, because I think we shouldn't create a program that we intend to provide emergency support for small businesses that could in fact be held up because an applicant can't get a letter because a website is down or there are funds in the program. The whole purpose of this is to provide emergency funding so we can keep as many people as possible employed and keep as many of our small businesses open. So thank you, Member Walrab, and I'm going to support this.
Thank you. If there are no other comments, I'm going to call the question on the amendment as offered. All in favor of the amendment as offered? Everybody understands it how it is stated? Raise your hand. Opposed? The amendment carries. We're back to the original motion.
Mr. Chairman, I had wanted to address just the reporting requirements on that program. Member Walrab and I had discussed, and we discussed it this afternoon. We would like the EDC director to come report to us on May 6th before the Finance Committee meeting and address us so we know that this money is actually moving out. And if there's any way to make sure that we can ensure that, I would ask that be done. So then there'll be follow-up meetings to exec and the full county board. I think that the county board should keep an eye on this money and make sure it's moving out and make sure it's being marketing properly. And so, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to add that in there. And I would hope that Mr. Hoban would be invited to the Finance Committee meeting to just give us a status update on the program on May 6th. And that's what Member Walrab and I had talked about, and that's what we agreed upon, and that's what we're hoping will be done. So thank you.
Member Erickson, Mr. Hoban is joining us, and so you can refer to him. I don't see any video.
His video members is not up, but Mr. Hoban is on the line.
Yes, I'm on via phone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes, more than happy to report back. And the amendment that was recommended also, yeah, different times now. I couldn't believe that the money went that fast, and what I've heard, the money will go just as fast when it's funded again. So yeah, more than happy to come back whenever you guys need me to report.
Thank you. We'll get you a notice on that. Appreciate what you've done to help us, and we'll duly note your request, Member Erickson. Thank you. Anyone else? Member Solner, this is discussion of the motion.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to ask Mr. Hoban now, if this passes today, if you give us just a quick rundown what the next steps are. Is he going to get marketing out? Is he going to call businesses, or what's going to be the next procedure?
So we started earlier this week with our in-house team, along with Army of Volunteers, calling the businesses, starting at the top all the way down. And we're also have 3 bids in for marketing proposals to start pushing this out and include it in our resource guide and update beingprepared.org. So hopefully we'll make a decision on that tomorrow. Then also working with the CDC and legal counsel to finalize the application of documents and then push them out.
Okay, well, that sounds good. And again, I think we all agreed we need to keep this moving. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Other discussion? Member Walrab?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to echo what Member Erickson had said, and just say that one of the things we would maybe like to see is a breakout in your reporting, Mr. Hoban, of by race and by gender when we start to get applications in, so that we know, that this is being promulgated to all corners of our county. And in my mind, it's an equal opportunity thing, not necessarily everybody's going to be qualified, but I want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity at least to get some of these funds. So I appreciate very much your work on this and looking forward to hearing your report in Finance Committee.
Thank you.
Understood.
We have a motion on the floor that's an amendment. All in favor of the motion C1F as amended, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion as amended as carried. Thank you. You have the floor, Member Solmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all we have today. Our general report can be found in the unapproved minutes. I'd be glad to answer any other questions.
Thank you. We'll move on to item D.
I wanted to make a comment, if I could.
Is this particular about this motion that just passed, or is this another
is-
question for
This,
member?
yeah,
Or about the
discussion, finance.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're all seeing here how critical this small business loan is in this program. And I kind of just wanted to take a moment to thank Member Robustelli for his leadership in proposing the small business loan program. I appreciate the time and energy that has gone into this. And I just wanted to make sure that I took a moment to thank you for that.
Ms. Wachinski, this small business loan program has been around for over 25 years. So I just want you to know that as well. We have tried to adjust it now so we can use it. Thank you. Any other comments? If not, we'll move on to item D, Health Committee Report, Chairman Member Schaefer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Health Committee has one item for action today. It's request approval and emergency appropriation ordinance amending the McLean County fiscal year 2019 combined annual appropriation for departments under the purview of the Health Committee, and I so move.
Motion by Chairman Schaefer, second by Member Chung. Comments or questions? If none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Opposed? Motion is carried.
Our general report can be found on pages 2 through 7 of the unapproved minutes packet.
Thank you, Chairman Schaefer. We'll go on to Land Use and Development Committee report, Chairman Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Land Use and Development Committee has no items to be presented for action, and our general report can be found in the unapproved minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to the report of the Transportation Committee, Chairman Gaisler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 5 items to present today. The first 4 can be lumped together, I believe, in one proceeding, and they are all related to Showbus. Showbus is a rural transportation service that covers Iroquois, Ford, Livingston, DeWitt, and part of Macon County, as well as McLean County. And McLean County is the agent of the other counties in administering this program. Item F1A is a formula application for rural area operating assistance under section 5311. The second is a request for approval of a downstate operating assistance program grant from the state of Illinois Department of Transportation. The third is a approval of an agreement with Showbus to provide service to rural areas in these 6 counties. And the fourth is a request for approval of a revised vehicle lease agreement between McLean County, and we own the buses, and we are proposing to lease them to Showbus to operate. And I move those 4 items.
Let me ask, is there an objection of combining item F, A, B, C, and D as presented by Member Kaisley? If none, then Member Kaisley has a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Second by Member Smith. Comments or questions? If none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Thank you. Motion is carried. You have the floor, sir.
The next item is F1E, request for an emergency appropriation ordinance for three particular items. First one is the Blooming Grove Wind Farm, and that is an emergency appropriation of $3 million for improving the highway between the Livingston County line and Route 24. The second item is extension, is engineering cost for the extension of the bike trail from Shirley, or a mile south of Shirley, to Funk's Grove. And the third is an appropriation for additional engineering costs on the East Side Highway project. And I move that.
Item F, E. Motion by member Kaisley. Is there a second? Second by member Wachowski. Comments or questions? Member Barnett.
I don't know if Chairman Kaisley can speak to this some more, or if this is a better question for County Engineer Stokes. Could you speak more to what the engineering costs are around the East Side Highway development?
Yes, we have budgeted $37,240, and we propose to add $1,500,000 to that to cover engineering expenses as requested by the Highway Department.
I guess the reason I'm asking is I was under the impression that for all intents and purposes, that the East Side Highway expansion was basically dead, or at least the funding and development of it was decades out. And if the County Highway Department is starting to do some sort of major engineering work, I mean, that's certainly going to be an impact to the East Side residents that Member Erickson and I represent, as well as Centennial Farms that are in the districts that cover the rural part of the eastern part of McLean County. So I guess that's why I was wanting to learn more about what these engineering costs were for the East Side Highway project.
All right.
I cannot give you an answer. Do we have anything in our minutes? Was there discussion in the minutes? Transportation. Member Barnett, have you checked that?
I do have them. I did not review the transportation minutes this month. I just wanted to take the opportunity to ask Member Kaisley, Engineer Stokes.
Mr. Chairman, I think I have an answer.
That's a carryover into last year's budget, isn't it?
I believe it's payments from when the initial study went through, however many years ago. I think we're still making payments to the engineering company for that. I believe that's what that is.
Okay. Well, that puts me at ease. Thank you. Thank you, Member Soldner.
It's been a long time agreement that's still hanging around, I guess, for lack of a better term, Member Barnett. At this time, we'll check it further and I'll get you some more information on it too. Member Metzger?
So help me understand, I'm confused and I'm reading the minutes for the committee meeting, and we didn't pay for the initial study and now we are paying for it. I'm still confused by this. I also thought that this was either stopped or was not being pursued currently. And I'm quite surprised by that amount of money.
Thank you. Anyone else? Member Zollner? David?
So again, if I recall, back in whatever it was, 2010, whenever it was, I think the total cost was like $10 million. So I think this is just making another payment towards that. I may be mistaken, but I believe that's what this is. It's not for any new engineering work. Again, I think if Engineer Stokes was here, he would concur to that, but I'm not positive.
Go ahead.
If I may, Chairman, we are texting Engineer Stokes right now to call in so that he can give a precise answer. It's been challenging to have department heads in the room, let alone in the virtual room, but we're texting with him right now and he can call in just a moment.
Member Erickson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The same information that you would send Member Barnett, I would like to see it as well, since that's my district as well. So I would appreciate that.
Thank you. Member Shaver?
I think that one of the things too is that these funds, this million, whatever it is, for East Side Highway, every year has been, for the last, I don't know how many years, has been pushed up a year. So it's like, it's not complete, but it's complete because it's kind of dead. And so I think if you actually go back and look at what we already approved earlier on bringing forward things from 2018 to 2019 and then 19 to 20, I think that's where that comes in. And so every year, I know for the last several years, we have had to do that. And East Side Highway has always been one of those items. So I think that that also has something to do with it.
My understanding, that's just carried over. We're not making that payment every year, but I could be wrong on that. From the original engineering phase, which is the only part that was actually approved at one time. That's been how long? 10 years ago, right? 8 to 10 years ago now. Member Barnett?
Well, and Mr. Chairman, I offer you and Administrator Rodriguez my apologies. I assumed that Engineer Stokes was going to be at the meeting. So.
Member Barnett is joining us now. Okay. Mr. Stokes, can you please, good evening, sir. Is he on?
Hello.
Yes. Yeah. The question has come up about the money as appropriated for the engineering part. It was carried over from the East Side Highway Engineering Fund. Can you enlighten us a little bit about what that is about on the budget?
Yes, I would. So in the past 10 years or so, we typically just encumber those funds and do a purchase order to move those funds from one year to the next. The purchase order wasn't done at the end of 2019, so this will basically emergency appropriation moves the money from 2019 budget to 2020 budget, so we can continue with the East Side Highway progress. Granted that we haven't, there hasn't been any movement as far as moving forward, but we're still getting approvals from IDOT and hopefully having a closure on this project fairly quick. So basically, it's just moving the money from one year to the next.
Now, so there's no engineering, even in the near future, as far as contracting goes. Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, this has been the continuation for the last 10 years on this project, and so it's the same project. We just haven't finalized anything yet, and it's just moving the money from one budget year to the next.
Could it be possible that the East Side Highway project will eventually be closed out by the state?
That's what we're pushing for. We're getting it to a point where we're needing some reviews from IDOT to complete it, And then once that's done, then it goes into more of a monitoring phase to where if the conditions warrant, then we'll pick the East Side Highway back up. But we got to get it to a point to where there's an environmental assessment and all that stuff is completed, and then it'll basically sit on the shelf at that point.
Okay. Anyone have questions for Mr. Stokes? Any further questions? Thank you. Thank you for joining us, sir. We have a motion. Did we have a second? Motion and a second to approve item C on the emergency appropriation for the Transportation Committee. Any other comments or questions? If none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Is there any opposed? Motion has carried. Thank you.
The committee has unapproved minutes, pages 8 to 12 of the unapproved minutes. And if there are any questions, I would be happy to try and answer them for you.
Thank you. We'll move on to item G, Property Committee, Chairman Barnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Property Committee brings forward one item for action to the board this evening. Item G1A, request approval of an emergency appropriation ordinance amending the McLean County fiscal year 2019 combined annual appropriation and budget ordinance for the general fund, facilities management and parks and recreation, which is on page 169 to 170 of the packet, and I so move that.
Motion by Chairman Barnett. Is there a second? Second by Member Smith. This is a cleanup item, Member Barnett. Would you like to
Yes, this is just cleanup from one fiscal year to the next.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Opposed? Thank you. The motion is carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Property brings no other items to action, and our general report can be found in the unapproved minutes packet.
Thank you, sir. Go on to the report of the County Administrator, Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members. I do not have any items to present for action at this board meeting. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you.
Yep.
We'll move on to item 8. Any other business or communication at this time? Member Solmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to comment, this month you made a lot of appointments, fire departments, water reclamation districts. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank all those dozens and dozens of people that do those jobs. Some groups meet once or twice a year. Most of them meet monthly or maybe even bi-monthly. So I just wanted to thank all those people. And I'm sure you know, it's hard sometimes to fill those positions. But again, I want to thank those people that do that.
Well, thank you, sir. I certainly would ditto that. Thank you. As you know, 300 plus individuals in the county serve on various boards for us, or different, and so we're happy to have people that are volunteering and helping us conduct all kinds of business that we have throughout the county. Thank you. Anyone else? Well, not I have bills to pay. I'm sorry. Member Barnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say for public consumption, both for my fellow board members, anyone who may be watching this live stream in the middle of the COVID situation and we are currently experiencing, it's pretty easy to forget about another huge thing that's going on in our country right now, and that's the census. I completed my census form a couple weeks ago. Just want to encourage anyone to please take the time, go to my2020census.gov and complete that. It really is a very critical and important thing, not only to the county, but to all of our communities. We stand to lose out on quite a bit of federal funding in the form of grants and other items if our population is not correctly recorded through the census this coming year. So just want to encourage folks, if you haven't yet, you can go to my2020census.gov and fill it out on the website. It takes like 5 to 10 minutes and you're done. And it's a great way to just help everyone out. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I did the same, very easy to do. Everybody needs to do that. Really makes a difference with our our cities and our county reimbursement. I have bills submitted to me, reviewed and approved for approval now by our auditor and our committees at the amount of $3,652,071.21. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by member Thompson, second by member Metzger. Comments or questions? If none, all in favor, please raise your hand if you approve of paying of the bills. Opposed, motion has carried. I have nothing further for this evening's meeting. Thank you all for your cooperation. Member Kaisley, you have your hand up.
He's muted.
You have to unmute.
I would just like to comment that statements of economic interest are due by May 1 for each of us, as well as for other people who we have appointed to various positions.
I'm sure you all got your reminders. Member Woolrab.
On that note, I believe that even if you did yours originally, you have to redo it. I thought I saw an email to that extent, and I'm glad you reminded me, Member Casely, because I forgot to redo it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other business? If not, then this meeting's adjourned. Thank you all for your cooperation, and we'll keep moving forward. Have a good night. Stay healthy.